Welcome to part 16. Are you ready to take everything you've been learning and put it into action as you evaluate copy? That's what we're going to do in this section. So you'll know exactly how to look at any piece of copy to see what's working and what might be missing. Evaluating winning copy is something that you're going to want to do regularly because you want to learn why something worked. Sometimes the copywriter might have bent the rules a little bit, but it was intentional and it worked really well. As you look at winning samples, you're going to strengthen your own smarts so you'll know the rules, see how they were applied, and see where the copywriter took a little bit of poetic license. Although I should mention, when you're just starting out, you're going to want to follow the rules as we give them in this program. Make sure you know them inside and out, and then after a while, you can try bending them too, but not before. These skills take practice, and you want to get great results for your clients. So start with what's known to work, everything we've shown you in this program. That way, as you review your clients' sales letters, email messages, web content, other materials, you can spot weak headlines, awkward flow, missing call to actions, and then fix them. Your clients will be amazed and your value will immediately rise. Now let's take a look at a winning sales letter, a strong control, as you follow along our video discussion with its brilliant copywriter, Richard Armstrong. After that, you'll do the same thing with a popular article for the writer's life. Enjoy.
I'm so delighted to be here with Richard Armstrong. He is a wonderful person. He's been a writer since the 70s. He was AWAI's Copywriter of the Year in 2012 and our keynote speaker at our 2014 boot camp, and always entertaining and warm and wonderful. We're so happy to have you here, Richard, to talk about your control for us.
Well, thank you very much, Pam. I'm delighted to do it.
Good, great to see you here. So we're going to learn some secrets about Richard's approach to all those concepts you've learned so far in the program. And at first, we're going to talk about, I'm going to share my screen so you can see what we're going to focus on. And basically, this promo here is Richard's promo. It's been a control for several years now for our Barefoot Writer Club. And you may be wondering, if you didn't come through to us through the Barefoot Writer, which you may have done, how did people get to this page? So first, I want to quickly just show you that we do advertising on Facebook and on Google and on Writer's Digest website and other places to reach anyone who's interested in making money as a writer and didn't know that there are lots of ways besides trying to get your novel published or something. So we have a free report, and that report is 9 ways to get paid to write. So it's a very intriguing offer. It's free. It's going to open up the minds of those who are like, there's got to be a way to make a living at this. And what we do is ask for their name and email in exchange for that free report. And then once they download that report, they're on our list. Basically, anyone who put their name in and email address to get this report is now going to get emails that drive them to this sales letter. And we have recorded, there's a recorded version, but this, we're just going to walk you through the scrolling web page version so you can see these pieces in action. All right, so now we know who the prospect is. Anyone who is really yearning to make some money as a writer and they're just flummoxed or frustrated because they haven't been able to do that, we're going to show them how. So Richard, we started this promo, you started this promo as a story lead. Tell us why you decided to go with that approach.
But in this case, it was just laid at our feet, no pun intended.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So tell me how that story kind of revealed itself to you and what was really powerful about it that made you come up with this headline, this direction.
She just had a wonderful story to tell. And what was great about it was that her story was so closely aligned to the ideal customer that we were looking for and the various frustrations and problems and issues and emotions that emotional customer was going through.
Yeah.
So her story was perfect. She and her husband were in a lot of debt. Most, as I recall, it was mostly student loan debt.
Right.
They were both working. They were young and they wanted to have children, but they felt that they really, number one, couldn't really afford to have children. And number two, nobody would be at home with the children. They'd
Right.
have to hire a nanny or use daycare or whatever. And she just was kind of checking all the boxes, so to speak, in terms of what we're looking for as our ideal customer to join AWAI.
Okay. And what I don't want to skip over before we start scrolling down and looking around is that it's a story lead, but it's also an intriguing secret that everyone wants to know. What she makes 6 figures from home. That's the thing. It's her
Yeah.
story, but it's also the hook that is aspiring. I want that too.
Yeah, well, money's a big part of this. I mean, obviously, we're talking a lot about freedom, about not being tied to a desk and a cubicle, not facing that long commute. And Mindy had a very long, difficult commute. So those are in there, but I would consider them to be side issues. It really comes down to making a decent income and doing it as your own boss too.
Yeah, we're telling Mindy's story. And I wanted to ask you about that because in earlier parts of this program, we talk about voice. And do we always talk about the you voice, which is kind of the fallback? But this isn't at all. This is Mindy's story. My name is Mindy. I went through this. And but there's a great way of crafting that still keeps people riveted and it relates to them. And I think some of those things that you pulled in are what we called, for example, the Achilles heel we mentioned earlier. For Mindy, it was being very frank about her financial situation, which is right here. She was in debt and with student loans and credit card debt and the mortgage. And they were kind of in a panic, like, how am I going to make my life work with this kind of debt? And so I think every reader can somehow relate to that.
The thing that makes a direct mail letter seem personal is that you have a strong sense of who that person is that's talking to you.
Yep.
Because you don't want to feel like the letter you're reading was written by a machine. You don't want to feel that it was written by a computer or a committee of people. You want to have a real sense of, who this flesh and blood person is that's communicating with me. And I think that is what makes the essence of a personal message. And yeah, you do that by being honest about who you are, about the problems you're facing. And, as I said before, the good thing was that the issues that Mindy was facing at that time were very much in alignment with what we consider to be our ideal prospect. So that works, but it works on the level of just knowing that this is a real person out there with real problems who has found a real solution to those problems. And to me, that's the essence of what being personal means in a direct mail letter.
Awesome. And we don't actually get to the solution for a while, which I think a lot of people mistakenly give it up too early, and then people realize, oh, they're trying to sell me something, and they dismiss it. But here you just get into this story that's very relatable, all the work hours, and excuse me for scrolling quickly, but I just want to walk through this, just hitting a few high points on how Richard applied these things that you've been learning, the concepts and guidelines. So what made all the difference is what we call a small turning point where suddenly Mindy's story goes, but wait, before I tell you more about this, I want to ask you a few questions. So you can see here, suddenly we're bringing them in. Are you up to debt? Up to your ears? Are you unemployed?
I don't like to let it go too long with somebody's story before turning towards the reader, because otherwise the reader might get that sort of feeling that you have when you're cornered by somebody at a cocktail party. And they can't stop talking about themselves. And even if they're telling you a story that's fascinating, you're also thinking, oh man, how long is this going to go on? I need to go get another drink.
Right.
So,
well, and I think people listen with always a little bit of an idea of why would I care about this, or what's in this for me?
Exactly. So I would say, this, I don't hold me to this, but I probably wouldn't go more than 3, 4, 5 at the most pages before I at least made some kind of nod to the fact that I'm talking to you and not just spewing my story out there. And so that's what we're doing there in that area that you have highlighted on the screen now. Then later on, she's going to go back to telling her story. And at a certain point, probably more closer to halfway through, is when she makes the big turn towards selling something. The thing is, you don't want you don't want to be too obvious that you're selling something
Right.
in the beginning. On the other hand, you don't want to leave it behind so long that people start to think, well, what is this all about?
Right.
You know, why am I watching this?
Right.
You've got to at least indicate that you have the solution to this problem and
Yeah.
that it's available.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to kind of whip through this section because this is more storytelling, but it's also revealing the solution in little side stories, for example. So Mindy says she got a letter. It was written by Paul. Paul's story is he learned about writing, and suddenly he was making way more money than ever in his whole life. And that was what the letter she received revealed to her.
The solution here is copywriting. And
Right.
we're very upfront about that. You know,
Yes.
copywriting's great. You make a lot of money as a copywriter. You live a good life as a copywriter. But the person, hopefully our prospect there is wondering, well, that sounds great. I'd really love to do that, but I don't know anything about copywriting. How could I be a copywriting? So that's when you offer the solution to the solution.
Yep. And I'm scrolling because I know we reveal this right here. So there's her story and all these things that she benefited from, a certain kind of writing that she teases through those previous paragraphs, a certain kind of writing. And this is where she reveals we don't call ourselves writers, we call ourselves copywriters.
You're right, yeah.
So now, at what point does the big turn happen to telling about all this, giving away secrets? Oh my gosh, what an opportunity and a cool way to make a living. Where do we turn to say, this is for you now?
Well, that's a really interesting question. And, the old boardwalk salesman from Atlantic City who would sell the Vegematics, the slicing and dicing, they always started their pitch with demonstration.
Yes.
They'd have their Vegematic there and they'd say, look how thin you can slice these tomatoes. And then maybe they'd slice something else and hand some samples out to the crowd. And it was all a big show and it was very entertaining, usually very humorous too. They had a lot of, patter like a magician that went along with their act. But at a certain point, you have to change over to selling. And these old guys on the boardwalk, they would refer to this as making the turn.
Right.
The turn. And we have to do it as copywriters too, because really we copywriters are boardwalk salesmen. And so there is a certain point there where we're no longer just talking about Mindy's story. We're no longer just talking about copywriting in an abstract way. We have to start talking about selling you something.
And this is where this happens here. So now you get into the actual materials or the benefits or the offers that you're presenting here for the reader. So if they want to become a well-paid writer, and they already downloaded that report, but this is going to be introducing them to copywriting specifically and joining a club that supports their success as a copywriter.
Right. So now we're in the section that, as I alluded to earlier, you would call the solution to the solution.
Yes.
Mindy's talked about all the problems that you're facing. She's hinted that there's a solution. Then she describes that the solution is to forget about novels, forget about short stories and poems, focus on writing junk mail. And hopefully we have the prospect going, this is great. I'm perfect for this because I know I'm a good writer and I know I can do this. And all I have to do is learn about this area. But the next question is, well, how do I find out about it? How do I learn what to do? And that's where we are now.
Right. So we have all kinds of goodies. And just for a quick second, I wanted to share your outline of all the goodies that you had put together as a list for this part of the promo. Here it is now. We have offer, 1-year membership to the club, 12 issues of the magazine, free copy of the secret formula for making $100,000 at home writing letters, free copy of the Lazy Writer's Guide to a Six-Figure Income, free copy of The Secret of the 1-Hour Work Week, and on and on. All of this is really amazing stuff. For an offer, it's only $49, and you get all of that. So that's
I'm a big believer, Pam, in outlines. I probably do too much outlining, but this is usually among the first things that I do. In fact, you're looking at the first page of what might be about a 40-page document or so.
Yeah, it's 35
Yeah,
pages.
there you can see the rest of it now. So
Yeah.
I just laid out what it is that we're offering.
Here's where we start getting into proof in a second. Okay, so here's some proof. Here are testimonials who are people who are thriving as writers. Ed is one of them. And then we have Star, whose story is amazing. She was laid off and walked up to us at boot camp and said, help, I have no income. What am I going to do? And the next thing we knew, she went off to Paris and lived there and was writing and working for a couple of companies that loved her work. And she was able to suddenly completely alter her life.
Yeah, isn't that great? I wish I could figure out how to do
I
that.
know. Me too. And Jay, and so that's the kind of things that's the proof we've been talking about in the other parts of the program are first-person testimonials of people who've already benefited from this. So I'm getting to the end now, and we just do a recap of everything they're going to get, and we talk about what the total value is, and then guess what? You're getting all this for free, plus the club, plus the support of the community, which is amazing, for only $49 right here.
This is kind of the value countdown.
Right.
If you've ever seen a commercial for commercial by Ron Popeil, an infomercial for the Pocket Fisherman, or what else did he add? He had sort of
Chopomatic or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he came from the Atlantic City boardwalk world too originally, but he was a master at this. He would do what you call anchoring a price. He would show you all you're going to get, and he would tell you, well, you've seen what we're going to give you, and you probably think that is worth, or you'll say it is worth $595. And then he starts bringing it down and down and down. And at a certain point, he may get down to maybe $200, and you think, the person's thinking, yeah, that's a pretty good deal for $200. But he keeps bringing it down further and down further till it gets to be like $20, and then it's a no-brainer. At that point, you feel like you're stupid not to buy.
We are so grateful for your time and walking us through this, and thank you so much, Richard. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Pam. It's fun.
Hi there, I'm here with Steve Slonwhite, who is a B2B copywriter, been doing this for 25 years or so, and he's an expert teacher as well for many of our members at AWAI who want to go to the B2B track. He's been the person to lead them there. So we wanted to have him walk through a B2B example of applying all the copy principles that you've been learning. So know your audience, speak in a conversational tone, give them a reason to read on. We've also talked about article formats, different formats, and we're going to learn about the one that Steve chose here. But hi, Steve, nice to see you.
Hi, Pam. Thanks for inviting me to do this.
Absolutely. We thought it would be a great example of content versus a sales letter piece example that we just went through before. Mm-hmm. So this is one you wrote for AWAI because the background is you created a B2B email copywriting program for us.
That's right.
So
that's right. Yeah, it's called Writing Copy for B2B Companies. And I just wanted to go back to what you just said about sales copy versus content. And there is a difference, but always keep in mind with those of you who are interested in writing for companies, is that anything that you write, any marketing piece is designed to help sell the product or service. Even blog articles are designed, perhaps in a more subtle way, to help sell the product or service.
Perfect. And we have been talking about that. It's all marketing. This is more subtle, but actually you'll find out at the end that it's not as subtle as you thought. And clever companies mix really helpful content that leads someone along the chain of making a decision versus just a direct sale buy now type of thing. But here's a little bit of a combo. But the main thing is the article and the great helpful content. So Steve wrote this article for us because it supports that program that he created. So let's talk about how it begins. We have many different types of content pieces and content starters or titles that we talked about. This one is, drum roll, a listicle. And what makes it a listicle?
Yeah, what makes it a listicle is that, is just as the name implies, it has a number in the headline. So in this case, 8 reasons you should write email copy for B2B companies. It could just as easily have been 5 myths about writing email copy for B2B companies, or 6 strategies for writing. You know, a listicle is a very popular format, especially amongst B2B companies for their blog posts and articles, because there's something about a list that's irresistible. I mean, someone even experienced in writing email copy for B2B companies, someone who has been around for a while may look at this article and go, okay, I could probably guess at 5 or 6 of these, but there might be 2 gems that I don't know. So they'll scan the article. That's what makes listicles so irresistible.
Yeah, I've read somewhere that it's the most popular type of article of title that there is. So
I'd say it's the most popular. Second most popular is probably the how-to format. How to do this, how to do that. It's probably number 2.
great. All righty. So in typical fashion with us anyway, but a lot of companies, there will be an intriguing headline like this or title. Then we have the author, then we have a graphic just to bring them in. And then there's an introduction. So in this case, Steve, you've written not quite a story, but a picture of what the reader could be experiencing as a writer.
Yes,
No,
I did this.
not as a writer, as the marketing director. That's
The marketing director. I did this for 2 reasons. Number one, I wanted to start with a story or an example, because when you start an article with a story or example or a scenario or an analogy, you turn on someone's visualization in their brains. They start to visualize what you're writing. And when the reader is visualizing what you're saying, you're in a very powerful, persuasive place in that person's mind. So I like to get them to picture what's going on. So that's why I began the article, even with the word imagine. Imagine you're a new marketing director, blah, blah, blah. And I tell this story to get them engaged, to get them visualizing what I'm talking about. There's a second reason here too, is I wanted to illustrate the why. Okay, it's one thing to say, you know, here's why you should be writing email copywriting for B2B companies and simply list the reasons. But I wanted to also prove it. I wanted to say, you know, imagine you're a marketing director and you've hired a copywriter who can get your response rates from here to here. Imagine how much valuable that will be, how great that will look on your bottom line. And I wanted to kind of show the reader that this is a real opportunity and this is why the opportunity works.
And what I love about this is you did something a lot of listicle writers don't do. You put the first one in your intro. So you didn't go number 1. It wasn't that obvious. It was kind of leading in, and then the rest of the list starts with 2, which I thought was different. I don't see that every day.
Yeah, and I don't see it every day either. I don't do it every day. This is an unusual circumstance where my opener also was one of the 8 reasons. So that's why it just happened to work out that way. It's not always the case.
I love it. So when you're looking at this part of the program, you guys, this whole article will be available to you to read word for word. We're not going to dwell on every word of it right now. We're just talking about how different thought processes were applied to this. So now we've talked about number 1. You get a lot of appreciation and respect, right? Now let's look at the others and the structure of this.
Yeah, and by the way, you do need a transitional sentence there. So it may seem simple, but when it says here are 7 other reasons why email copywriting is such a terrific gig, you need that transition sentence into the list. Okay, make sure you always have that.
And this
it just helps maintain the flow for the reader.
And cleverly for you, it's a lead-in sentence with a big benefit.
Yeah.
Why it's such a terrific gig. Instead of just saying, here are the other 7 reasons, you augmented it with why it's such a terrific gig, which love that. So
and this is a good correlation between writing a traditional piece of content like a blog article and writing sales copy. We're still talking about benefits, right?
Yes,
Benefits.
What's in it for the reader? Always number 1.
What's in it for the reader? Absolutely. What's in it for them?
So lots of work doesn't mean you have to do lots of work. It means you'll get lots of work.
Yeah.
And so that's good. Lots of jobs.
Maybe we should change that to get lots of work.
Get lots of work. No, I mean, I think that kind of is that double thought makes them go, I'm not sure. Let me check this out. And then they realize, oh, there's opportunity, lots of opportunity. All right. So that's cool. And then we have it's mostly short copy, which a lot of writers are looking for. They're not really into that long sales copy type of project, that long sales letter. They love the shorter bits like emails. It's a great gig to do emails.
And something I always do with subheads whenever possible is I try to make subheads benefits. Not every subhead can be a benefit. Sometimes you need a subhead to do other jobs, like as a transition or something like that. But whenever possible, I make a subhead a benefit. So all these list titles, which are types of subheads, most of them, if not all of them, are benefits.
It pays well, of course, is a fabulous benefit. And I love what you said. You can charge twice what you would to write a product page. So,
yeah, this is using, and this is another article writing technique, by the way, is to use comparison with comparing what you're writing about with something that may be more familiar to the target audience. So I anticipate a lot of writers are more familiar with, writing short blog posts for companies, and that sometimes doesn't pay very well. So I want to compare the opportunity by saying this is about the same amount of words, but the same amount of work, and you get 2-3 times the fee.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised to read in this middle little sentence here, email copy is one of the highest paying specialties in B2B.
Word for word, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Word for word.
Great. Cool. And then regular work. I know about this one. If you're writing, no client's going to hire you to write one email and then say, have a nice day.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be emailing every day and every week to their members and prospects. So
that's right. A common scenario is for a company to hire a freelancer to be their regular email copywriter, writing all their marketing emails on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis. They like your email copywriting, I guarantee they're going to come back and say, oh, can you write our ad? Can you write our blog? Can you write our white paper? Can you write our website? They'll be at you all the time.
It's great. And you only need a few clients to have a great business, just to mention that. And we talk about that later on in this program. All right. The better you get, the more you're rewarded. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. And I wanted to add that in there as an opportunity because the thing about writing marketing emails for companies is that, if you're writing for one company, you're writing a lot of marketing emails, what's going to happen? You're going to get faster and better, right? You're going to get faster and better, but you're charging the same amount per email. So you're going to be making more money as you move along. Also, as results start coming in, as you start proving yourself as someone who can get, write an email that gets a good open rate, write an email that gets a good click-through rate, and then moving on to the landing page, get a good response conversion rate. Okay, you're going to be positioned to be much more valuable to that company, and you can charge accordingly.
All righty, and then the other two final reasons are less hype.
Less hype and less competition.
Yeah.
Less hype. Again, when you're writing content like a blog article like this one, you're always thinking about your target audience, who they are, what their needs, challenges, desires are, what their world's like, what they're skeptical about, things of that nature. And I wanted to put in less hype because we're all familiar with receiving hyped up emails, right? Sometimes spam emails. So I wanted to contrast this opportunity with that reality to say, well, this is B2B marketing. It tends to be very low hype, more focused on facts and real benefits, rather than kind of hyped up, excited, exaggerated copy. So I wanted to get that across here because I think that's a big benefit. People like writing these types of emails.
Cool. And then less competition. Are you talking about as email specialists in the B2B world?
Yeah. There's less competition here than in writing for B2C.
We have the conclusion. Every piece of content should have a conclusion that wraps.
Well, that's right. And a big mistake that writers make when they're writing blogs for their clients or even for themselves is that they create a list like this and then they end at the last item on the list. They just end it there. You're losing a big opportunity to motivate the target audience to move forward. So you need a wrap-up sentence, and I like to call this a breadcrumb call to action. So a very soft, subtle call to action that simply says, hey, use these 8 reasons. Take a look at this opportunity. Check it out for yourself, and see if this is for you, without actually mentioning the product itself, but just a gentle kind of push in the right direction, right? That is the best practice of writing blog articles for companies.
And if I scroll up and just hide that promotional box underneath, this is a very typical way to softly guide someone to the next step. So
That's
let's
right.
say they love this and they're like, oh my gosh, I really like the idea of writing emails for B2B. There's a link that will guide them gently to the next step. And then we at AWAI always put a promo box at the bottom that may or may not be typical. Some companies do that, some don't. We have just found that it also helps with conversions to the product page, but this subtle one is very, very common. So that's really it. That's the strategy behind this article and all the articles that Steve writes for us, and pretty much all the articles I write for us. Same idea.
Mhm.
And I just wanted
and
to.
I just wanted to point out that more and more B2B companies, if you can scroll to the bottom again,
Oh,
Pam,
sure. Yeah. Sorry.
more and more B2B companies are putting in that box at the bottom. A lot of marketers call this a resource box.
Mhm.
But a lot of companies are finding the same thing that you found, is that it increases conversion rates on the page if that resource box is there. So the current best practice is to have the kind of wrap up sentence with the link that you just pointed out.
Yep.
But something that's emerging amongst many B2B companies, they're starting, more of them are putting in that box as well. And you can write the copy for that resource box for your client.
Yes. And even the landing page, maybe when they
And
get
the
there.
landing page, and of course it goes on and on, right? You
Yeah.
can expand the opportunity tenfold.
This one does, but in B2B, they don't typically have long form sales letters, but they'll still link to a resource page that has an awesome solution for the reader. So it's a great opportunity all around. And I thank you, Steve, for this walkthrough. Really helpful to see the difference between sales letter writing and content writing.
Well, thank you, Pam. It's my pleasure.
Alrighty, straight from the writers themselves, you've just seen the fundamentals of persuasive copy in action with the Barefoot Writer promotion, and you've seen how a great piece of content can support a product or service from a B2B copywriting leader. Now it's your turn to practice evaluating 2 pieces of copy, as you'll see in the exercise below. See you in part 17.